What is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to episode 124 of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Mockler. We are all part of the 213 Hoops Empire. I say all of us because I'm talking about my fantastic co-hosts, Adam Osland and William Updike. How are you fellas doing today on day one of the Nic Batum as starting power forward era? Adam, I'll go to you first.
Much better than I was doing the other night, as you guys know so well. Look, I had a sense of urgency after that loss to the Pelicans. That's all it was. I didn't freak out on you guys in our group chat. Nothing like that. Feeling better. Big win for the Clippers last night and a big development with Nicholas Batum in the starting lineup the rest of the season.
Will, how about you? We did have to talk Adam down a bit. He was losing his mind.
Oh, it's fine.
Oh yeah, Adam was down bad, but I'm feeling great. Honestly, like this has needed to happen. It's been pointing in this direction for a while. We had kind of talked about earlier, my thought was, was this a sort of prove it time for Marcus Morris, right? Like, is that why we waited so long post All-Star break? The only drawback really is it a little too late? Like, have we waited too far? Because looking at that standings, if you want to tempt fate and mess around with your seeding, which the Clippers might, we've seen them do it before. Obviously.
They love to do that.
There's some teams like nipping around that kind of 7 seed that have tiebreakers over you. So it is a fairly dangerous game. But hey, if this is going to contribute to more wins, I'm with it, and I believe that it will.
I hope it does. We're going to preview Clippers versus Grizzlies. They have a little mini series coming up. We're going to talk about the Nic Batum starting forward thing and then take a look at those standings later in this episode. We're on YouTube now. Go ahead and check us out at Clippers Podcast over on YouTube, and on Twitter we are at Clippers Pod. So you can always chop it up with us over there. Let's get into the biggest news maybe of the season to this point for the Clippers. In the middle of the game, it was funny. Tomer Azarli dropped an article that was like, sources, Marcus Morris isn't going to start anymore. And then that was confirmed by Ty Lue in the post-game presser, which if you haven't seen the video, Ty looks bummed about it, or the way he answers is like there's some tension in the room or something like that. Another development in this Marcus Morris thing, he's now on health and safety protocols per the team. We hope he's doing okay. Roko's expected to play the backup 4 and 5, we think. But Will, you brought up something that I wanted to talk about, and this is another waited too long thing in this Clippers season. We waited too long to get a backup 5 that wasn't Moses Brown. We waited too long to figure out this guard jettison, and now we're kind of maybe there's 6 games left. Like, did we wait too long to do this? Do we think the front office maybe stepped in and was like, we need to stop this? Like, I don't know. I'll go to Adam first because you have a quizzical look on your face. Do we think this is too little, too late, or too much, too late? I don't know how to. It's another starting lineup shakeup after the All-Star break for the Clippers.
I hope not, because it's not like Nicholas Batum hasn't been in the starting lineup before, doesn't have a ton of familiarity with the rest of the guys outside of Eric Gordon anyways. So I would hope that, look, I had this thought earlier today that maybe this was always going to happen. And what we were seeing with the Nicholas Batum maybe soft minutes restriction was them waiting till the end of the season to put him into the starting lineup, because if you do that, he's going to be playing heavier minutes. And they viewed Marcus Morris as more of an innings eater during the regular season. I have no intel or knowledge on that.
Like, if you're going to use the baseball metaphor, the innings he ate 8 of the 9 innings. It's how it feels, right? There's 6 games left.
So not modern day.
He had
baseball.
like a Charles Mockler meal of hot Cheetos and Mountain Dew. It was he was eating. I'm not sure what he was eating out there.
This was early 2000s Russ Ortiz with the Giants outside of when Dusty Baker took him out too early in that game 6 against the Anaheim Angels.
No
you let guys go
on this podcast.
Well, Chuck's a big fan, I know. So
I'm absolutely not a Giants fan.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that they had always planned on doing this, because I don't know what other reason there would be for playing Batum so little. And if you start him, he's naturally going to end up playing more minutes because he gets an early shift in. So I think it's crucial for this team postseason wise to have success, to have Nicholas Batum at his best. And wouldn't you know, 16 for his last 22 from the outside, an unbelievable game, going 8 of 10 just last night. But I think I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of continuity that's built up very quickly, or maybe some continuity that's already been built in, because with 6 games left, and you never know because you're taking on some good quality clubs down the stretch here, but I do think better late than never would be the statement I would say regarding Nicholas Batum being in the starting lineup now.
I mean, that's kind of what we have to say, right? Like we're happy it happened. Will, I mean, I had a haggle, no haggle in here, and I want to go to Will on this. Given the health and safety protocol thing, has Marcus Morris played his final game as a Clipper?
Final regular season game for this season?
I might just say in general. I'm counting the postseason on this. We don't even know if he's gonna because it's expected Roko's gonna be the backup 4 and 5. We've had no real idea of what Morris's minutes are going to look like.
Coach Lou did not confirm that post game.
Yeah,
part of the tension.
Right.
There was 3 seconds of silence after being pressed on that, after being asked about Nicholas Batum by Andrew Greif being in the starting lineup. So I don't know about that part of it.
That's fair. So we think that Morris is just the backup now when he comes back from health and safety.
I would haggle with that. I maybe depending on how long this health and safety thing stretches out, maybe we don't see him in the regular season. But I mean, he started 65 games this year. So
for sure.
No, I don't really see him being suddenly DNP CD'd unless there was something like unless Ty, maybe got some word or something from the front office that they had to move in another direction, which I don't really think. If the front office was going to step in, I don't know that it would be right now.
6 games left, right? Like that would be kind of crazy.
Guys, the game against the Pelicans for Morris was very rough, and I'm not trying to pile on here. It's been a rough couple of months for him. But in that game, he's starting on Brandon Ingram, and then he gets moved, and they're knocking down threes on him. Like there just wasn't a place to put him to make him successful, and he just hasn't looked right since that rib injury. Totally. Really, that's when things really started to go downhill with his shooting percentages and just his lack of lateral mobility out there to stay in front of guys. So I'm wondering, he's a tough guy. Maybe he's been trying to fight through this. Maybe he didn't want to lose his starting job initially. It sounded like last night he was all for it, according to Coach Lou, of making this move. But Marcus Morris, it's just been a rough 2023, unfortunately, because he got off to such a good start to the season where we were dunking on everybody, saying, like, you guys didn't want Marcus Morris on the team anymore, and look how good he looks out there. He's had multiple dunks, which he said was one of his goals coming into this season. He did get those in early on, but there is a stark contrast between how he was playing back in October and November and when it's looked like the last couple of months.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So when Morris comes back, be it we know he's going to miss at least this first Memphis game. We obviously all like Batum starting. That fit we're excited about.
Not everyone's excited.
Yeah, Will seems to be having some technical difficulties. Will, we can still hear you, buddy. So I thought the funniest thing of this was Kawhi said that he likes Batum's pace, but I think that was just interview speak because I don't think Batum's a speedy guy in that sense. So what does the bench rotation look like when Morris and Norm come back, right? Like, do we run out Terrence Bones, Norm, Morris, Plumlee?
I mean, they certainly have something with T-Bones right now, with Terrence and
T-Bones,
Bones
by the
Highland.
Way, wonderful nickname. Hats off to Adam. T-Bones for Terrence, man, and Bones. I think that's great.
All right. Well, I never know when I'm being mocked sometimes when it comes to Twitter. It's tough to tell. I guess Apple added a new sarcasm look emoji thing today, which is harder to explain than you would think. But I love those two coming into the ball game. That has been a revelation. What Bones Highland has brought to this team is so needed, especially because if you watched him over this last week now, defensively, he has not been a liability on that end like we were told he was going to be, like everyone thought by the way he played in Denver. Outside of him being slight of frame, the effort's been there, and he showed some wiry strength. He had a block a few games ago. He had a couple of steals against the Chicago Bulls, was creating coast-to-coast fast breaks in a one-man show all by himself based off of him playing defense and then getting himself into his offense or getting open looks for other guys. He and Terrence Mann, just a Jolt Cola style out there whenever they are on the court. I hope it doesn't go away, at least in the regular season. I know lineups are going to tighten up eventually, but I think with the way Bones Highland has played and who he's been since he's been in the league, like there's utility there to say, in case of emergency, we can go to Bones Highland at some point if we just look lethargic out there, and that completely changes the way the team runs on the court.
And you think out there with Morris, him, like that's that backup five, like 5 total players, we feel okay about that to close out the season. Because I'm also wondering when Norm comes back, is Bones pushed out now of the rotation? Because we don't really know what the playoff rotation is outside of like the starting 5. So I'm curious to see what happens to Bones minutes, because I don't think Ty's going to play like 10 or 11 guys to end this season.
Yeah, it's brutal. They do have 2 more back-to-backs though, so that could also play a factor in this. And the availability of Kawhi Leonard, we still don't know. He was asked post-game about if he's going to play in either of these last back-to-backs. He said basically we'll see. So he might have to go deeper into his bench, Coach Lou, because of that. But I just don't see how, when you have 41 assists in a ball game against the Chicago Bulls, and one of the driving forces of that was the pace that Bones Highland played with, you can take him off the court completely right now. Will, are you seeing the same thing? Because we talked about it last night on our double dip.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that pairing has performed incredibly well. And I think Bones, I didn't quite realize how good his game was as a point guard and as a facilitator. So,
Agreed.
like, I knew some about him. I know that his finishing was a little suspect, but I think that what we've seen is just even his ability to attack. It does open things up for the Clippers, and he is able to do that. And, he said coming in here that, prior to the Westbrook acquisition, that he wanted to come in here and be that prototypical point guard. So that has been one of those things that, I mean, once again, this one can't be a too little too late because he was a late acquisition. But man, it does make you wonder a little bit about some of those games he was sitting on the bench there.
Yeah, people were surprised he was getting DNPs. There's a lot of like non-Clippers.
I mean, he was
fans.
in Denver, so it like I get it, and we were trying to work other things out, and I understand wanting to go with what you know over sort of the unknown, quantity, and I think that comes back to the Morris thing. Who also I just want to say like what he got from Clippers fans this year. Sorry to get off topic, but what he got from Clippers
I wanted to
fans
talk
this
about
year
this too.
Was a raw deal, man. Like it's a bummer, but like if he was struggling with an injury, like the man can't really control that. He's not in there personally dictating the rotations, and he had the trust of his teammates. He had the trust of the coaching staff. It would have been, like you wouldn't walk into your job and be like, hey, could you actually demote me? I haven't been doing that well at work. So I think that some of the ire that he faced was really unfair, because at the end of the day, he had to turn off
his Instagram comments. Like it was crazy this year. And you're totally right.
And this is a guy who at the end of the day has really done a lot for this club. And he has lifted the Clippers in times where there was nobody else to do it. And while it's, unfortunate, and, like I said, we maybe did wait too long to have that happen. I do, in some ways, I do understand some of Ty's stubbornness in sticking with his guys. Sorry to take that off topic. Sorry to take that off topic there.
No, I think part of the breaking point was also not just the fact that he was being picked on and targeted so much defensively, but when he started to turn down shots against the Pelicans, which we saw on Saturday, that was a sign where his confidence just must be shot right now. Understandably, he can't find his shooting stroke, and that's typically the last thing to go if we're talking about a guy that's just aging out all of a sudden. And I think it's more likely that there's something going on with the nagging injury going back to the rib injury, because for it to go that quickly with a good start that he got off to this year, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily the end of Marcus Morris, whether or not he's coming off the bench or he could step up in a big moment in the playoffs and perhaps just him not playing heavy minutes, close to 30 a night. I think right now he's top 3 on the team in minutes played this season, maybe top 2. Maybe that rest could rejuvenate him a little bit. And at some point, the Clippers do need to rely on him in a big spot, and he finds himself because he's come up clutch for this team in the past.
He has, and he put, because of last year, I think last year is really what was difficult for people who somehow thought that with no Paul George and no Kawhi, we were going to be some 48-win team and all this thing. And like when you have Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris as your main guys, like we did last year, it's going to look like what it did, which is a 42-40 team, or whatever it was. And people somehow thought they should have done more. And then this year, things have not been good, right? Like we're kind of battling for like a lower playoff seed, which no one wanted. So that got exasperated. But I was bummed out by how some of the fans, and I'm not going to pretend like we're going to sit here and say that he's been great, right? Like it's been rough. It's been bad.
I think it's fine to be critical of his on-court performance. I just
Totally.
think like it definitely crossed a line there.
Yeah, he had to block his Instagram comments, which is like, dude, anytime a player's having to do that, it's a rough look for your fan base. Like it just is. Like no matter how bad they are, unless they're being like outright dickheads or some weird thing like that. But Morris never did that. Like it was a little rough this year from Clippers fans, from Marcus Morris, and hopefully, he bounces back and whatnot, because it's not like the Clippers can afford to lose someone who has the capabilities of what Morris can do, not what he has been doing, but what he can do. Like Adam said, maybe there's a time when we need it, and we just need everyone's confidence to beat 100 for the playoffs.
Yeah, and hopefully it still can and not could do. Hopefully he still has enough in the tank, maybe after he just has his minutes, go down some, where he gets the Nicholas Batum treatment, where he starts to look better because of it. But in going back to what we were talking about with Bones Highland, if he's not turning the basketball over and he is giving that effort on the defensive end, I just don't see how you can keep him off the floor. He's had 22 assists to 7 turnovers his last 3 games. Like, he has been really competent at running the show.
And he and Man combined for last night, what was it? I think 12 assists between the two of them with only a combined 3 turnovers. Maybe it was 4, but it's still like really, really good.
It's fantastic. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about Bones because he's a hot and cold guy. So we're going to talk about kind of his play against the Grizzlies, which we'll need. Anything else you want to talk about? Just kind of this Batum Morris swap before we get into this Grizzlies game preview?
I thought Russell Westbrook had a really good game, by the way, and 2 of his last 3 games were 2 of his best defensive games in years. The game they lost against OKC 101-100, he was awesome. In fact, there was a play late where he D'd up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, locked him up, was being very physical. Eventually, they called a foul. That was when they rescinded later in the 2-minute report. Not that it helped him then, but technically, it shouldn't have been called. Russell Westbrook was doing his job. And he had 3 steals in the second quarter. The Clippers had yesterday against the Bulls, they had 14 fast break points in the second quarter alone. I believe they averaged 12 per game on the season. They finished with 26 yesterday, but that second quarter with him and Bones and Terrence Mann out there was special. So if we're talking about where does Marcus fit in, or is he going to be the backup, or is it going to be Rocco? It could be Coach Lou running more 3-guard stuff if one of them is counting as Terrence Mann, or if one of them is counting as Eric Gordon, next to guys like Bones Highland and Norman Powell. So you're not too small, and Russell Westbrook. There are guys there who can play defense. It's not the same as what they had before with Reggie Jackson and Luke Kennard, where you're always trying to hide one of them out there. They're not as much of a liability if they go 3 guards now with the guys and the personnel they have.
I will say.
So you're saying you want to see Bones at a backcourt of Bones and Norman, Terrence at the 3, Russ at the 4, Gordon at the 5.
This is Don Nelson's dream still. While he smokes his marijuana in Hawaii.
I don't think he can dream with how much weed he smokes. But I will say, you saying 3-guard lineup made me shudder, because I do not want to see any more 3-guard lineups with 6 games left while we.
Well, I'm just. How do you view Russ, Bones, and Terrence though? Because
I think when Norm comes back, Bones is out of the rotation.
He might be.
I just think that's just a Ty Lue thing.
It's totally possible. I just think he's played really well. And I did get some numbers on this. The Bones Highland, Terrence Mann, Mason Plumlee trio, I forget who posted this earlier on Twitter, but they're outscoring opponents by 17 points per 100 possessions in 73 minutes so far. And they're a plus 54 per 100 minute or per 126 minutes alongside Kawhi Leonard when you add him.
I was gonna say, how many of those minutes are with Kawhi though?
With Kawhi, it's even much more lopsided, the plus 54 then, but it's only been 26 minutes of that. But Russell Westbrook, by the way, and we talked about this when they brought him in, some of those areas he really struggled in the last couple of years. What could it do being on this Clippers roster with all that shooting and more spacing out there? This comes from Lucas Hann, our boss. He said he's 16 of 37 on 2-point pull-ups beyond 10 feet. That's 43% after being 35% last year in that area with the Lakers. And after shooting 50% at the rim with the Lakers this season, he's up 10%. He's at 61% now at the rim with the Clippers. So
we need all those bumps.
He said some of these numbers actually are peak efficiency stuff from Rush, even going back to his prime.
Right. So should we bank on that continuing if it's the best he's ever played?
What, they're 15 games in now with Russell Westbrook post All-Star break?
Yes, with a sub 500 record.
I just think it's pretty obvious that he can help this team, that there's no doubt about that it's a much better fit with the Clippers. And that's a big part of this. And a lot of the people that were, when they were 0-5, just remember all the talk and the conversations going on and the narrative being spun around Russ is killing the Clippers. And that just hasn't been the case.
It has not been the case. We'll see how it works in the playoffs. Adam is bullish on Russell Westbrook. Asked him to talk about Batum. We get all these Russell Westbrook stats. Cup, we're talking this Clippers versus Grizzlies 2 for a preview. I got some ads coming up. If they've been loud for you, go ahead and turn it down. Ads coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome back into Clips and Dip. Clippers taking on the Grizzlies 2 times in a row. As we mentioned up top, Moore is still in health and safety protocols. Norm is now updated to questionable.
Yes.
A great bout of news for the Clippers. So Adam, where are you at on this matchup? What do you think we can split this? You think we go 0-2? Where are you at?
And Jaws doubtful.
I know what you're going to say, but
Jaws doubtful for their game tonight. So it remains to be seen if we'll see Ja for both games.
Well, they're playing the Orlando Magic currently, and we're up big earlier. And the Grizzlies right now have the longest winning streak in the NBA at 6. It would be at 7 should they beat the Magic tonight. And you could say it's the Magic. Well, you might want to think about that as a Clippers fan because they beat them twice this season. Grizzlies are up 81-58 as I check the box score to see if Ja Morant is out for this one. Yes, it appears so. Jaren Jackson Jr. doing some work. But
sounds about
I
right.
think since we don't know if Kawhi is going to play a back-to-back this season, the game they have to get is Wednesday. Because my guess is if he's only playing one of the 2 Friday or Saturday, it's going to be in New Orleans against a team that has the tiebreaker over the Clippers and is that close to them in the standings. So I think the game is tomorrow night that the Clippers really got to lock in on and find a way to get a victory. It's going to be really hard to win 2 in Memphis. If they won 1, that's great. They have to get 1 of the next 3, though. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, got to split. We got to give Kawhi some help. Do we think Brooks is going to be on Kawhi the whole time?
Ooh.
If you're Memphis, why would you not put Dylan Brooks on Kawhi the entire time?
You go from playing against Patrick Beverley to Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But Kawhi will be unfazed, of course, and Lou Dort before that. I think that we're going to see a lot of Dylan Brooks on him. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Do you think they'll continue this trend of like really aggressively doubling Kawhi, like basically having 2 guys glued on him at all times?
To me, that wasn't that like the most encouraging part though of that victory last night. Kawhi had 7 points at the half, had hardly taken any shots, and they're still up by 7. And he finishes just taking 13 shots, hits 8 of them, has 22 points, and they were up by 25. Without Paul George, without Norman Powell, this team managed to put up 124 points when Kawhi only had 22. I know it's an outlier shooting night for Nicholas Batum, even though he's had 2 games this season so far where he's hit 7 3-pointers in them. It's still an outlier. 8 of 10 is crazy. You can't rely on it. The Clippers going 20 of 40 from the outside. You can't rely on it. But part of that is good process. Like, it's not just a fluky shooting night. You are more apt to have a night like this when you're moving the ball and getting into the paint the way the Clippers were, making those extra passes.
Yeah, that's a good call. I agree that the process has looked a lot better over these last couple games. With no Adams. So I was looking at their kind of doubtful list and the out list for the Grizzlies. They're going to be without their number 1 rebounder, which is Steven Adams. Ja is their number 3 rebounder, and he's doubtful. Brandon Clark, who's been out all year, is their 4th. So they have one of their top 4 rebounders, hopefully there. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to have a lot of responsibility on that end. And so Zoo getting his body set for that, I'm looking forward to Zoo stepping up this because we got to stay active on the boards. We cannot give up second chance points because now that we have this new starting lineup, we're theoretically not going to be down 10 points to open the game.
They were only down 5. But I will say this, there's a difference. If you watch that first quarter against the Chicago Bulls, the last few possessions by Chicago, DeMar DeRozan hit a 3-pointer in the face of Rocco that was very well defended.
It was very well defended, yeah.
And then Zach LaVine hits that long 2-pointer in between Rocco and Batum to end the first quarter. There's a difference between getting beat or tipping your cap to teams that just – are a little bit better than you on offense, and good offense typically beats good defense, than what we saw against the Pelicans in that first quarter on Saturday, which was just a mess.
Well, right before that DeRozan 3, though, Drummond got his own rebound and put back, which I would say that is a little bit on the Clippers defensively.
Sure. But overall, their defensive effort was better. Teams are still going to hit
the
tough
number of
shots,
deflections was
play
insane.
through it.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Batum being in the starting lineup is that he sets that tone defensively for the extra stuff. You know what I mean? He's always he's getting like early deflections and stuff like that. We talked Bones Highland to the Lob the Jam, the podcast, part of the 213 Hoops Empire, put out this stat on Bones when he's in the pick and roll as the ball handler. He's averaging 1.04 points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler. It is a small sample size. Russ is at 0.71. Wall was at 0.61. So Bones in the middle of this efficiency streak is being one of our better pick and roll ball handlers. So I hope we can spam that out there because it's worked to this point. And with a streaky guy like Bones, if it's going well, you're kind of in like a trap because you just have to keep going with it, right? Because you have no idea how long the streak will kind of go. So I'm excited to see that against this Memphis defense, and just to give him more confidence. Not that he needs more confidence, but
I mean, he and Russell Westbrook had some great lobs to both Big Plum and Big Zoo in that game. Plumlee had a huge throwdown in the fourth quarter where I didn't even know he could get up that high.
He's been so extra since he's been a Clipper. Where is he did the yo-yo dribble? He's been doing behind the back passes. Where did this come from Mason Plumlee?
He's even taunting teams by shooting free throws with his left hand. He's just whatever, guys, I can beat you with my left.
Weird. Will, are you worried that Luke Kennard is going to go 12 for 12 from the 3-point line in this game? I might be.
Of course, always.
He's lighting it up right now. It's he gets to a new city and all of a sudden he decides to shoot the ball a little bit more. It's a little frustrating, but I'm happy
he might have been another one of those guys though who was kind of suffering with something that wasn't quite that had him
3-guard lineups. He had to play with Reggie Jackson and John Wall for 10 games.
That had him physically not quite right. And I think I think when you're not 100%, it definitely contributes to that sort of indecision. So yeah, I don't know, but yes, there is the possibility if he takes shots, and it seems like with all the absences or possible absences for the Grizzlies, there will be some shots available for him.
He's 4 for 4 from 3 right now against the Magic, and the game before that, He was 5 for 10. The game before that, he was 10 for 11. He's on an absurd streak right now. But I
Hot
think we have
take:
the
if Luke
size.
Kennard hits 10 threes, we lose this game.
Well,
I'll no haggle that.
He went 5 for 5 against the Clippers in that victory the Clippers got. He had 15 points, and I think Coach Lou made a joke post game of, oh yeah, now he's shooting them every time he gets a look. Now he's not afraid to put him up or hesitant, which is all they ever wanted from Luke Kennard. I wish him well. Not in the next 2 games against the Clippers, obviously. What about your guy though, Will? Eric Gordon, and the way he's been playing, 8 for his last 12 from the outside. I want to see what his 3-point percentage is now, because he was 43% now as back with the Clippers coming into yesterday's game. And now, yeah, he's at 45% since he has returned from distance.
One of the things I've loved about Gordon too is like how much of a rhythm and momentum guy he is. It seems like he'll be a little bit cold. He'll have kind of a quiet game. And then all of a sudden it's like he hits 2 back-to-back threes and then like glides to the rim with ease. And like the Clippers have now had like a 7-point swing in no time at all. So I love those little bursts from him. I think it's finally starting to coalesce with him in the starting lineup. But yeah, we'll see. And man, he's another guy. Like when he and Norm are both back, what are the bench guard minutes? Like I have no idea like how all of this is going to reintegrate. And for that, I really hope, not to jump ahead here too much, but I really hope my surprise performer of the night is going to be Norman Powell, and it'll be a surprise just to see him back on the court. But I'm like hoping with both fingers, both legs, all 20 toes crossed.
With both fingers,
testicles,
everything crossed, everything that I could. My eyes are crossed. Everything that I can cross is currently crossed. That Norm Powell will return to the lineup in this first matchup against the Grizzlies. Or they pull him out the second game, but I'm going with hope.
Yeah, he was warming up pregame for a good long time yesterday. He was putting up a lot of shots. He looked good out there. We've seen a lot of the practice photos and everything he's been going through with his rehab process, recovering from that shoulder injury. It'd be great. I know these are all good problems to have so much talent.
I think I'm on the other side of that now. This is now a bad problem. There's 6 games left, and we're still like, we're going to work in Norm Powell, and he's get back, like Morris is out for a bit, but he'll get worked back in. I'm a little stressed by it, if I'm being honest.
I'm trying to think of it like this, and I know Major League Baseball has made some changes recently, but if somebody doesn't have it going that night in the bullpen, just pull them. Pull as many guys until you find the guy who's got the right arm that night. Maybe it should be the same thing with the Clippers. If somebody gets a couple of minutes in and they just don't look right, take them out because you have more options.
That's the Ty Lue. Like we have the coach for that. Like we're gonna see that, I think, because now we have to incorporate. Russ joined the team after the All-Star break. So now that was already a truncated timeline for your kind of leash if you're playing bad, right? Was a little bit after the All-Star break. Now with Batum, we got another new starting lineup, and with PG out, and with Morris coming back, like we're in I think you're right. We're in show me 3 minutes. If you don't have it in 3 minutes, we're going to try and figure out what works, except for Kawhi and Zoo. Those are kind of the only 2 people in the starting lineup where I'm like, yeah, you guys are going to get your normal shifts. Everyone else, we're going to see things chopped up by Ty Lue, I think, as they should be, because we don't have any time.
I think you can go ahead and include Batum at this point in there too.
I think that's fair.
Barring them, wanting to hold him back for playoff stuff if they, do a silent minute restriction or whatever. He has for a long time been the glue that makes so many lineups work. And with him now in the starting lineup, I could confidently put him in with Kawhi and Zoo and PG when he returns as the guys who they're going to be constants.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Hey, by the way, Luke Kennard currently 4 or 5 from the outside against the Orlando Magic. So he
missed one. That's
definitely
great.
on a heater.
Well, he's 4 for 5. He was 4 for 4. Will kind of already spoiled it. Who was going to be your surprise performer of the night, Adam? And you can't pick Norm because Will already picked him.
Can't pick Norm. Can't pick Batum. He was too good last game. I
You
I
could pick
gotta.
Batum if you're like he's going to go 8 for 10 again. Mark it. Call your bookies.
How about Big Plum?
Bones.
Big Plum?
Big Plum. You know I love picking Big Plum just for his name sometimes, but this is going to be a game that could be decided in the rebounding area. You talked about the guys who are missing for the Memphis Grizzlies, but they're still good. They're still so active. They have a ton of young guys. They crash the boards collectively. And Mason Plumlee and Ivica Zubac could really help the Clippers if they're going to be able to win a game there just by cleaning the glass and doing a great job. And that's something, as much as Plumlee has struggled defensively at times, and we've kind of gotten a crash course in what he's good at and what he's a little bit deficient in. Well, his rebounding has been there for the Clippers overall.
Yep.
He's very good in that area, and they're going to need all the possessions they can get, because when they lost to the Pelicans on Saturday, I mean, the Pels got up 21 more shots than the Clippers, and
It's
it was
that field goal attempt battle.
Recurring theme.
offensive glass. They were so good there, and the Clippers had a few more turnovers. But the Memphis Grizzlies, they're about to be seven straight wins for them, and they're doing it tonight without John Morant. They're the hottest team in the NBA. You're going into their house. I think they have to get the game tomorrow, because I don't know if Kawhi's playing Friday.
Yeah, that's a good call. All right, so you got Big Plum. I was going to say Eric Gordon, but he's just been really good the last 2 games. Also, fun fact about Eric Gordon, he was named Mr. Basketball of Indiana his senior year of high school. He got that.
He's been Mr. Basketball his whole life.
I knew it. I was just setting it up.
Why, Will?
You know why.
You know why? I know Zoo has been wildly efficient, but is it crazy to say Zoo to have maybe like close to 20? That feels a little crazy to say. It would be a surprise.
I would love it. He should get more touches right now. He's been
so
too efficient.
5 of 6 his last game, 6 of 7 before that, 2 of 3, 5 of 5. Like the man, he's shooting 63% on the year.
I thought they could have leaned on Zoo a little bit even more in that Bulls game. It didn't end up being a factor because the shooting from deep was absolutely nuts.
Right, you don't.
But I mean, Zoo was feasting in that matchup against Vooch. Like that's a good matchup for him. So whatever, it is what it is. Like the offense flew the way that it was supposed to. But yeah, I think exploiting those kind of matchups, especially when things hit the doldrums or we're struggling to get shots to get good shots. I think that should be the fallback.
I bet in the second game, whichever one Kawhi sits out, which is probably going to be that second game, the second game of the back-to-back, I think Zoo's poised for kind of a big week, if that makes sense. Like we don't know what the team's going to look like on the second game against the Grizzlies, and then we have that back-to-back. So like it seems like a good time to lean on a guy like Zoo.
Well, this team always talks about like trying to get easier buckets, and they're usually referring to a point guard.
Never
but, like,
do.
Yeah, but and also like isn't feeding Zoo on a good on a mismatch or a good matchup literally the easiest points? Isn't that the easiest of points?
In the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, Adam's like, I want Zoo taking threes, baby.
No, you're right. He shoots 63% from the field. Feed the beast when he has it going. I hate when they forget about Zubac because he gives such a good effort on the defensive end, regardless if you're involving him on offense. But give him some touches. Give him some love. He makes it look easy. I know he's got to hit his free throws. Part of that is on him. Sure. You can't feed a guy if he's going 1 for 5 from the free throw line. He's obviously better than that. But to your point, 3 of the last 4 games, he hasn't been in double-digit rebounding figures. So maybe a pretty good surprise performer.
I'm throwing a curveball. I'm going Rocco.
Okay.
I think Rocco's going to have a good game. He was not very good in the last game. He was 0 for 2 in his 11 minutes, and he was a -9. Not good, whichever metric you want to look at it. I'm going Robert Covington.
Well, so that -9, you have to context that because he started his stint in the first quarter and then went through to the second. And then if I'm not mistaken, he didn't play or he played very little until garbage time. And that entire garbage time
11 minutes
was
-9.
Like this game against the Bulls, that was a 20-point win in my book. Like that was a 20-point win. It went to garbage time. The guys weren't really playing defense. It was a slop fest out there, and they end up with only a 12-point victory. So I do think you have to contextualize that for Rocco. Well, I'm not saying that he was great. I don't necessarily think that he was a -9 overall.
That's fair. I think he'll get more than 11 minutes, and I think he will have a chunky stat line. He'll have a couple of
So now you
deflections.
think Zoo's gonna suck for this game?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Zoo's gonna be minus 36. We're gonna win
His
by
shorts
10
are gonna fall
somehow.
down. His shorts are gonna fall down when he comes down with a rebound.
That's why I took Big Plum. They're gonna have to play him a lot.
Someone's gonna do the thing where they put water on Zubac shorts, like this guy pissed himself, and the ref's gonna be like, technical.
He gets
You're gross.
he gets a tag.
You're too gross. Technical, Zoo. No, I'm going Rocco because I think we're in the summer of Rocco almost ish. I don't know. It's gonna rain tomorrow. Who knows?
The Rocolution.
Yeah. It's
something there. I don't know.
It could be. Clippers marketing. If you're listening, Rocolution. Book it down for.
I prefer 4 Rocco, but whatever.
They should do a 4 Rocco promo night at Staples where you get a free 4 Loco if you're over 21.
But the old sketchy kind that still has caffeine in it, which is illegal now.
That's how you get that's how you can get them for cheap. You can get Rocco's face on there. Adam, you've never experienced a 4 Loco, have you?
No, I have. I used to do something called sidewalk slammers, which was, in your college days, you do some stupid drink concoctions.
Sure.
This was recommended by homeless men, like the most bang for your by vagrants, by vagabonds. Like, apparently, it's the most bang for your buck. Like to go.
What is it?
4 Loco with like whiskey and I think a Steel Reserve and maybe
a 211?
a shot of vodka.
Oh my god. That is bang for your buck. That is something for your buck. That is heart palpitations for your buck. Well, I'm happy you don't do that anymore, man. That sounds like a damn nightmare. Anyway, 4 Rocco nights, Clippers marketing, the Rocolution. You can have all these ideas, whichever you want. All right, coming up, we're going to be doing a quick standings watch because it's just tense. This is how it is now. If you're listening, you've heard the ads, we allowed, go ahead and turn it down. We got ads coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in Clips and Dip, episode 124. I'm Adam Moslem. We got Will Updike. You joined me last night on AM 570. No, it was the Patriot AM 1150 because when the Dodgers are on AM 570, the Clippers are on the Patriot AM 1150. But we did some double dip post game.
Yeah,
it's great.
Chuck only listens to that station when they're not playing.
I figured if anyone here did, it was Chuck. But thanks for coming on, Will, last night. If you want to get to us at Clippers Pod on Twitter, on the YouTube channel, we actually got it. It's called Clippers Podcast. Look for us there so you can see all this excitement. And maybe if the Clippers win a championship, we all slam some sidewalk slammers.
I like Steel Reserve. I'm down. I don't like
St. Ides, man.
Malt liquor's great. Yeah. So in the standings right now, everyone's kind of in a precarious position, especially in the lower half in the Western Conference. At this point, the 4 seed is within range for the Clippers, but they're going to have to do some big work and also get some help from the Phoenix Suns, who are getting Kevin Durant back tomorrow. And they're taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves tomorrow and could actually help out the Clippers beating the T-Wolves because that is one of the many teams that owns tiebreakers over the Clippers. In fact, right now, the only 2 teams who are within range that the Clippers have tiebreakers over would be the Lakers, obviously winning the season series already, the first 3 games. But then the Golden State Warriors currently, at least, based on division record, where the Clippers have been a little bit better there. So it's difficult. The Timberwolves are in the 6th spot currently, right behind the Clippers a game back. But again, they have the tiebreaker, and they're playing really good basketball. I was hoping the Sacramento Kings were going to clinch that playoff spot last night and help out the Clippers by beating the Timberwolves. Didn't happen. The T-Wolves, I think they're the 2nd hottest team behind Memphis right now in the Western Conference.
3rd. I think the Pels are five straight.
Yeah, Timberwolves 4 in a row, Pels 5 in a row. Nuggets 4 in a row. Everyone's playing pretty well, but the Clippers have won 1 in a row, which is how you get to 6 in a row. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Those other teams didn't have anything birthed out of those 6-game and 5-game and 4-game winning streaks like the Clippers had last night.
Bro, the Clippers maternity, the metaphorical maternity ward for the Clippers has been overflowing to end this season.
That movie, Children of Men, would not work with that plot line for the Clippers because babies are everywhere.
Shams reported today. I don't know if I'm putting reported in quotes that PG is going to be out an extended period of time, which everyone was like, "Oh no," and I'm like, "What? What have we all been reading since the injury? Like this isn't."
Greif said like a week ago, like that hopes that he would be available for the first round of the playoffs were probably optimistic.
Yeah, like so I don't think that's anything new.
How can anyone know? It depends on how his body responds. Like no one can know these things. It's just to make news. I'm sorry. Paul George can't know. So how can anyone else know?
So you would be just as surprised if Paul George came back in 2 days as you would be if he was out like the first round of the playoffs?
I think there's just as much of a chance that he could be back for the first round of the playoffs as there is that he's not right now. Until they give us more information,
which we're not going to get.
Did Shams come out and talk about any of the ligaments or anything, or if the bone bruise? Did he say?
But that will
details?
never happen. We know that will never happen.
Well, then how can we know?
I mean, I respect the optimism. I don't know where it come from being a Clippers fan, but I respect that you have it. But yeah, I don't really, and that's not going to play into any of like the seeding stuff or anything like that. It feels like Suns Clippers. It feels a bit inevitable right now. Durant's coming back. I don't see them making up 5 games on the Kings. I don't see them necessarily losing ground either. So I think we're not locked into the 5th seed, but it feels like we might be trending toward that Suns matchup. Unless they want to really get crazy and drop to 6 and go Kings that route.
I'm not so sure because Minnesota currently, they have Phoenix tomorrow night, tough one. Then they host the Lakers. Then they host Portland, at Brooklyn, at San Antonio. Then they take on New Orleans, the last game of the season between those two. Both those teams have tiebreakers over the Clippers. It's possible one of them puts the Clippers in the 6th spot. I could see it happening.
That is true. We have the 2nd hardest strength of schedule in the Western Conference to close out these 6 games. Phoenix has the 4th. Sacramento's really bad. Minnesota has like the 3rd easiest, which is a little tough. So that's interesting. I'm nervous either way. Do we care who they play, or are we on full? I might be in full Zen mode, just in the sense that I don't care who it is. I just want to win games. I just want the process to be good. I can't really sit like obviously sure playing the Kings might be easier, but that home court's going to be insane, and they're playing good basketball. They're not they're not a fluky 3 seed. I think I'm just at peace with whoever it is. Although I would hate it if it were the Suns.
Will, how do you feel about it?
I mean, the 6th seed is the better. It's the better route. Like there's no way around it. I agree. Like I don't think the Kings are a team that you're going to be able to walk over, but their defense is like incredibly suspect. So I see them as, unless you end up in the play-in and end up against Memphis in the first round, which I think has a lot more glaring kind of issues. I see that as the favorable matchup, especially given your 2nd round opponent. But I don't know. Like I guess I would rather win games and look good doing it and feel a little bit more confident and have ultimately the harder path than look like shit for half the games and like end up in the 6th seed with the better matchup, but like at what cost? Yeah. And still like I still think the Clippers taking on the Kings if Paul George isn't available like that. You're not just going to mark that down as a dub. No, I don't think that they're going to just immediately be able to like 4 wins against this Kings team is going to be really, really hard. You're going to like, I don't know.
I just wonder because of 2 things. The Kings don't have playoff experience at their key positions. Their main guy, De'Aaron Fox, has never been in the playoffs. I think he could be amazing. He's been the most clutch player so far this season, but also we know the pace of play is going to change. We know there's going to be fewer possessions in the playoffs. There could be games where the Kings still get it at their tempo and they're flying up and down the court and they beat you 125 to 121 or something like that, or whatever the score was the last time when they beat the Clippers by
176, 125, could be anything.
But there also could be a little bit of a playoff culture shock for them. And I'm not saying it's certain, and I don't think it's an easy matchup at all. It's just you're looking at, pick your poison. And I think the Phoenix Suns will play maybe at a better pace that's more comfortable for the Clippers, but it's also a pace they're comfortable at and usually wins in the playoffs. And they have Kevin Durant. And I really think people have forgotten just how good they're going to be when they're fully loaded. If you want to make the argument you don't believe they can stay healthy, fine. But I think when they are at times going to touch some of that ceiling that the Warriors scraped with Kevin Durant. It's going to look that good at times. They're going to be that deadly because they have two of the best mid-range shooters on the floor in the league ever in him and Devin Booker. And then if you beat him, it comes down to Denver. But I wanted to ask you guys, what record do you think the Clippers need to have in the final 6 games to have a top 6 seed?
Have a top
Chuck?
6 seed. 4-2.
Who are they beating in the 4?
Anybody. I don't care who it is. But you got the back-to-backs was really hard. I know that's hard. 4-2, but we just kind of talked about the schedule a little bit. Minnesota has the third easiest schedule in the Western Conference. They're right behind us. It's got to be 4-2. And that, to me, also shows that we're playing well, right? Because 3-3 doesn't feel good, right? Going 500 over these 6 games. And we're talking about 6 games like it's a big sample. But, Will, what do you think? Is 4-2 crazy? I almost said 5-1.
No, I don't think that's crazy at all. It's so dependent on what everybody else is doing, right? The Clippers are only up 2 games in the loss column above the Lakers. I mean, I do think I think that 4-2 is realistic. I don't know that playing 500 ball over these next 6 games is going to be enough to secure you a top 6 seed.
Adam, where you?
Which ultimately, if you win that first play-in game, though, not the worst.
Oh God, it's kind of the worst. It's close to the worst.
I think 3-3 is pretty realistic. Just because, I don't see them winning both games in Memphis. There's a chance they could lose both games in Memphis. If Kawhi is not playing in one of them, the second one, there's a good chance they could lose. And then they have a back-to-back where they're in New Orleans the next day against a team that they rarely beat and just got beaten up by. And by the way, New Orleans was down players in that game, a lot of guys. I know the Clippers are out with guys right now, but New Orleans played really well. Could that look different with Nic Batum in the starting lineup? Yes, I definitely think so. The Lakers are playing much better. And that's going to be a dogfight. That's going to be the most important game between these two teams ever? I don't know because they haven't played in a playoff series. This is as close as you can get to a play-in to the play-in or staying out of the play-in.
A play-in to the play-in, yeah. They should have that next year.
There's a play-in to stay out of the play-in right now, right? That's basically what it is. Teams trying to scratch and claw and get over one another to stay out of the play-in.
But do you think 3-3 is enough to get it done? I think that your prediction of 3-3 is dead. Probably what they'll end up going. I don't know that keeps you. I don't know that keeps you in 6th. Like I said, it really just depends on how the chips fall around you. It really just depends on all the things that are out of your control. You can safely lock in 2 losses for the Clippers, just given the back-to-backs. And then, I think this Memphis series really sort of determines that this first game is really, really important.
I think it depends on who you beat with those 3 wins. Get one against Memphis. You got to beat New Orleans because they got the tiebreaker. And you have to beat Portland.
Which they're shutting Dame down. They're in full, we suck mode. So they could lose to the Lakers and possibly be okay because they have the tiebreaker against them and because the Lakers have some tough teams coming up on the road where they're in Chicago tomorrow. Pat Bev's going to try to make good on his promise to knock them out of the playoffs. He already hit them with the part 1 of that. And then they're in Minnesota.
they still have Houston and Utah is dangling on being out of having a play-in possibility, but they're still going to be fighting. They have their game against Phoenix on April 7th could be really interesting, where the Lakers play them at home. If they have Kevin Durant and they still have something to fight for to solidify themselves as the 4 spot. So I feel less worried about if they lose to the Lakers. I think they need to get one against Memphis. They have to win that game against New Orleans. And then if you beat Portland, there's your 3 wins. You go 3-3 with those victories. I think you'll likely hold on to the 6th spot.
And the last game against the Suns, who knows what that's going to look like from the Suns' perspective for guys playing, right? Like, these last 2 games get a little weird with lineup stuff. If they have a seed locked up, they've already been so cautious with KD. I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe get some load management help from the Suns in that last game, depending on how they're doing.
Yeah. Or they don't want to see the Clippers in the 5 spot and they try to beat them.
Right. Which would feel good. I would feel great about that. If they're like, everyone's playing, we don't want to see this. But then, of course, knowing the Clippers, we would probably just bench everybody at the last minute and we'd watch Jason Preston try and go against Chris Paul. Anything else? We want to leave these pretty hyped up Clippers fan. Clippers Twitter was actually fairly peaceful today. We'll see what happens after Luke Kennard goes off tonight. But anything else we want to leave these fans with before we let them go into yet another rainy couple of days in Los Angeles?
Go Clips.
All right. That was pretty comprehensive.
we got the Zoom silence. We are out. There's going to be a double dip tomorrow. I will be on the radio with Adam over on AM 570. Post game, Adam, you'll have the pregame as you always do. Gonna have a duo pod on Thursday. Adam and Will debating. I don't know what you guys are going to talk about, but it should be a fun time. Reviews help us. We're on YouTube now. Go watch us. Go give us some reviews. We really appreciate it. I don't know. And let's go Clips. We want to read some reviews on the air, so send them in. And we will be back with y'all on the post game on AM 570.